A lot of you guys are not being logical when it comes to Lamar Jackson's contract situation. You keep saying the Ravens need to pay Lamar Jackson what he's asking for. If you're the CEO of Amazon, right, and your best employee comes up to you and he says, hey, I want a raise. Now, of course, you're going to listen because this is your best employee. However, this employee has a tendency to call out a lot around the holiday season, which is the most busiest time of the year for a company like Amazon, because most people do a lot of their online shopping around Christmas time, and yet your best employee wants a raise. However, he's not available for you during your most busiest time of the year. Lamar Jackson allegedly wants a fully guaranteed deal, but yet he's been unavailable for the Baltimore Ravens during the most important time of the NFL season, which is late in the year. Late in the season, after Thanksgiving, is when the contenders start to separate themselves from the pretenders. This is when most teams are making their playoff pushes. Late in the year is when teams start to catch fire. And yet your franchise quarterback, the guy who is the key to you winning a Super Bowl, has not been available for you for 2 consecutive years in a row. And yet, people think that it's smart for the Baltimore Ravens to commit fully guaranteed money, a fully guaranteed contract to a quarterback where you have concerns about his health long term. I don't get what's so hard to understand about this. I'm not a Lamar Jackson hater. As a matter of fact, I'm one of the biggest Lamar Jackson supporters that you guys will find on this platform. One of my earliest videos was why Lamar Jackson will succeed in the NFL and evolutionize the quarterback position forever. So I'm the last guy who anybody should call a Lamar Jackson hater. I'm a Lamar Jackson hater because I'm being logical about this contract situation. The problem with Lamar Jackson getting a fully guaranteed deal has nothing to do with his play on the field. When Lamar Jackson is healthy, he's won 75% of his games as a starting quarterback. Lamar Jackson is one of the best quarterbacks in the game. Nobody is denying that. If you were to give Lamar Jackson a fully guaranteed contract based on his skill set, how talented he is, and where he ranks amongst the best quarterbacks in the game, nobody would push back on that. The problem with giving Lamar Jackson a fully guaranteed contract is that you have reservations about his availability and his health. If Lamar Jackson has struggled to stay healthy for the last 2 years, why would the Ravens feel confident enough giving him a fully guaranteed contract? This isn't Patrick Mahomes. This isn't Joe Burrow. Both of those guys have missed times with injury, but they don't have an extensive injury history. Joe Burrow, he's been in both of the AFC Conference Championship games for the Cincinnati Bengals. The last 2 years, Joe Burrow has been available late in the season for the Cincinnati Bengals. Same thing with Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. But where's Lamar? You know, other QBs who are in line to get paid, like Joe Burrow, who most likely is going to request a fully guaranteed deal, he's going to get that. You want to know why? Because not only is he one of the best QBs in the game, but he also is able to be available for Cincinnati come playoff time. You guys keep arguing for Lamar Jackson getting what he asked for, and yet the Ravens are wrong for not wanting to commit a fully guaranteed salary to a guy who isn't able to stay healthy for the most important part of the NFL season. I don't have a problem with Lamar Jackson getting injured early or midway through the season. I know he can't control when he gets injured. Injuries are random. You can't control when they happen. But at the same time, if I'm going to allocate 20-something% annually of the salary cap to you, I need you to be healthy. If you are my franchise quarterback, I need you to be on the field to help me win games, because if you're not on the field, our odds of winning the Super Bowl are very low. And for the Baltimore Ravens, 2 straight seasons in a row, it looks like they have the potential to make a deep playoff run, and then Lamar Jackson gets injured. Back in 2021, Lamar Jackson got injured during the second half of the season, and Lamar Jackson, due to him missing the second half of the year, caused the Ravens to fall out of the playoff conversation. The same thing almost happened this year, but Tyler Huntley, aka Pro Bowl Snoop, another legend from the 954, was able to win 3 games for the Baltimore Ravens and keep them in the playoffs. And they almost beat the Cincinnati Bengals. If Lamar would have played in that game, the Ravens probably would have won that game. J.K. Dobbins even said it. With Lamar, we beat the Bengals. But you see, that's the problem. Where was Lamar Jackson? A lot of people say he didn't play because he was trying to stick it to the Ravens, but Marlon Humphrey after the game said that Lamar Jackson was limping around the facilities. Once again, the most important time of the year, Lamar Jackson is unavailable, and yet the Baltimore Ravens should just pay him a fully guaranteed contract. Now, people can say, well, JT, Lamar isn't asking for a fully guaranteed deal. Is that really true? Are you guys really going to say that the Ravens are unwilling to give Lamar Jackson what he's asking for because he's not asking for a fully guaranteed deal? Like, I'm pretty sure the Ravens will have no problem meeting Lamar Jackson's demands as long as they're reasonable. But if Lamar Jackson is truly asking for a fully guaranteed deal, he's going to be in for a rude awakening, because the Baltimore Ravens just put the non-exclusive franchise tag on Lamar Jackson. This is going to allow other teams to negotiate deals with Lamar Jackson, and the Baltimore Ravens can match any offer put on the table for Lamar. For those of you guys who are big fans of the NBA, this non-exclusive franchise tag is similar to how restricted free agency works in the NBA. A player who is a restricted free agent can be offered contracts by other franchises, and yet the team that they're currently on can match any offer. And if that player leaves, they potentially could be compensated for it. So if the Baltimore Ravens don't want to match any offer that any team throws at Lamar Jackson, that team can sign Lamar Jackson, but in the process, they have to give up 2 first-round picks. The market is going to dictate Lamar's value. The Ravens basically have said, you know what? We're going to allow other teams to offer you, and we're going to see just how much the rest of the league truly thinks you're worth versus what you think you're worth. I don't think Eric DeCosta is a terrible general manager. We seem to forget that Eric DeCosta, outside of his misses that he has had with drafting receivers, this guy has been fantastic as a general manager for the Baltimore Ravens. He's done a really good job drafting, building up the Ravens roster, signing guys in free agency. The Ravens have always been one of the most classiest and well-run organizations, not just in the NFL, but in sports. And yes, this is a little bit of a bad look on their part, because the fact that it seems like they're not willing to commit long-term to Lamar Jackson, not wanting to meet his contract demands. But at the same time, this is business. In football, there are 11 other guys on the field along with your quarterback. Although quarterback is the most important position in the game, 3 out of the 4 quarterbacks who are in the conference championship games this past season were playing on rookie deals or cheap contracts. Brock Purdy, rookie deal. Jalen Hurts, rookie deal. Joe Burrow, rookie deal. Patrick Mahomes was the only one of the 4 quarterbacks who was playing on a new contract. And there are a lot of statistics that back up how quarterbacks, after extensions, don't really have a lot of success winning championships after. You want to know why? Because they get extensions and teams aren't able to allocate more money to other positions of need. If the Ravens give Lamar Jackson a fully guaranteed contract similar to the one that Deshaun Watson has with the Cleveland Browns, it's going to take up 20-something% of the salary cap for the Baltimore Ravens for the next couple of years. And if your quarterback is making a large amount of money and taking up that big of the salary cap, how are you ever going to be able to bring in big name free agents? How are you going to be able to surround Lamar Jackson with the supporting cast that he needs to win a championship? You say Lamar Jackson needs more help. Lamar Jackson needs a elite wide receiver. A lot of Ravens fans want the Ravens to trade for DeAndre Hopkins, but yet if Lamar Jackson gets paid, how are they going to be able to pay DeAndre Hopkins? How are they going to be able to pay for elite level free agents if they're giving Lamar Jackson the majority of the money? And this doesn't excuse Eric DeCosta or the Ravens front office, because at the same time, they are a large part of the reason why they're in the situation that they're in with Lamar Jackson. Because you see, if they were like the Seattle Seahawks and they did a good job at drafting receivers, then they wouldn't have this issue. If their team was already built up and they drafted well to the point where all they have to do is re-sign Lamar Jackson, this wouldn't be an issue because the team around Lamar Jackson is already good enough to win. But since you've whiffed on receiver, the best receiver you drafted, and Marquise Brown, you traded him to Arizona, so he isn't even there. Of course, you're going to have a little bit of reluctancy when it comes to giving Lamar Jackson a fully guaranteed deal, because if you give him this much money, you're not going to be able to allocate a lot of money or a large part of your salary cap to other positions that you need to address. Therefore, you're going to be walking in to a season where Lamar Jackson is going to have to make up for a lot of your holes. And that is not a winning formula for winning a championship in the NFL. Historically, the teams that have won championships have been the teams who weren't quarterback-centric. You can blame Greg Roman all you want to, but at the same time, if the Ravens are paying Lamar Jackson so much money to the point that it holds them back from signing big name free agents or building up their roster, what's really the point? You might as well let Lamar Jackson walk. You see, if the Ravens did a better job at drafting skill position players in the draft, this situation probably wouldn't be as bad as what it looks on their behalf. Because then your team already is built up enough to the point where you can re-sign Lamar Jackson and not have to worry about re-signing some of your marquee players because they're still on rookie deals. So by the time those players come to the table for contract extensions, you don't really have to worry about where that money's going to come from, because then you've already took a large amount of the cap hit from Lamar's deal early on into his deal, 1 or 2, 3 years in. So there, for the last 2 seasons of Lamar's deal, the cap hit isn't that big and is going to allow you to re-sign some of your big name guys that you drafted to long-term deals. So for the Baltimore Ravens, when it comes to them not giving Lamar Jackson a fully guaranteed contract, I don't have a problem with it. Yes, I love Lamar and I want Lamar Jackson to be a Raven. But at the same time, this is business. In business, you have to be smart. And in business, you can't allow one player to dictate your whole entire company. Or you can't allow one employee, regardless of how big of an impact they have on your company and your business, to dictate how you run your whole entire company. If you're paying one good worker the majority of the salary that you can pay to other workers, you're only going to have one elite worker and a bunch of average or slightly above average workers around them. So when it comes to the Baltimore Ravens giving Lamar Jackson a long-term extension or a deal that's fully guaranteed, that wouldn't be a smart decision on their behalf. Lamar Jackson hasn't proven to be able to stay healthy for a full season for the last 2 years. Plus, if you give him this much money, you're not going to be able to pay for big name free agents at positions that you need the most. It's easy to say pay Lamar Jackson what he's asking for, but the salary cap actually does exist. The salary cap actually is a real thing. There's a reason why the Los Angeles Rams are flirting with trading away Jalen Ramsey. There's a reason why they had to get rid of Bobby Wagner. And there's a lot of other good players who are going to be cut due to salary cap issues. You want to know why? Because the salary cap is a thing. You can't pay everybody. You can't keep everybody happy. Sometimes you're going to lose some great players. Hell, when the Kansas City Chiefs extended Patrick Mahomes, guess what happened after? They traded away Tyreek Hill. You cannot allow one player to dictate your whole entire franchise. There's been plenty of quarterbacks who haven't been regarded as the best of one of the best at their position who've still been able to win championships. Hell, Eli Manning. How many of us view Eli Manning as a top 5 or top 10 quarterback all time? I'm pretty sure not too many of us do. And even when Eli Manning was playing, most people didn't even view him as an elite quarterback. Eli Manning was just very good at stepping up his game in the biggest moments during the postseason. That's what separated Eli Manning. What separates Lamar Jackson? His athleticism, the fact that he's a winner, he wins 75% of his games. But the thing with Lamar is that you can't trust him to be healthy. The franchise tag is something that Lamar Jackson is probably not going to play on, but the franchise tag is only to buy time for the Ravens to come to terms on a new deal. With Lamar Jackson getting signed to the non-exclusive tag, we're going to see just how much value teams put on Lamar Jackson. Just how much do teams think Lamar Jackson is worth? Because if teams think that Lamar Jackson is worth less than what he's asking from the Baltimore Ravens, then I think that goes to prove the Ravens' point that Lamar Jackson's contract demands were just a little bit unreasonable. And Lamar Jackson, he's going to be in for a huge reality check when he realizes that potentially there's going to be no other teams out there who are going to be willing to give him a fully guaranteed deal. The only team that I think would be desperate enough to give Lamar Jackson a fully guaranteed contract would be the New York Jets, because Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas, they desperately need to win this year. And if Aaron Rodgers doesn't want to get traded to the New York Jets and you can't get Jimmy Garoppolo, then it comes panic time. And that's when a team like the New York Jets can get desperate because their back is against the wall. But outside of the Jets, what other team out there would commit a fully guaranteed deal to Lamar Jackson, somebody who has struggled to stay healthy during the most important part of the NFL season? And remember, I keep saying the most important part of the NFL season. I have nothing wrong with Lamar Jackson if he is going to be an injury-prone player, missing 3-4 games a year, as long as it's not late in the season when I'm trying to make a playoff push. Late in the year, after Thanksgiving, is where the contenders separate themselves from the pretenders, and that's when you need your franchise quarterback to play their best football. You don't want a situation like Kyler Murray in the Arizona Cardinals, where you have a guy who has played at a good level, but he's had some injury concerns. You give him a big contract, and then he gets injured. And then you have people questioning you, giving him that much money, when you knew the fact that there were concerns about his character and his availability. Now, although Lamar Jackson doesn't have the character concerns like Kyler Murray, you still have the injury concerns. And availability is super important when it comes to these contracts. Now, you can say, well, JT, Lamar Jackson is a former MVP. Bravo! Lamar Jackson is a former MVP. We live in a society that asks the question, what have you done for me lately? Recency bias. I'm sorry, it is a little bit unfair, but that's just how the world operates. The world goes off what you've done recently. And what Lamar Jackson has done recently is not be available late in the season when the Baltimore Ravens needed him the most. You can say, well, Lamar Jackson not playing shows that the Ravens need him more than anything. Does it really? Or does Lamar Jackson not being available prove the Ravens' point why he's not worth the fully guaranteed contract? I'm pretty sure if the Ravens were to trade Lamar Jackson and they get 2 or 3 first-round picks in return for him, they will find a way to make it work. I'm pretty sure the Ravens would still be a pretty solid team without Lamar, because although they won't be as talented at quarterback, they'll be able to allocate the money that they would have been giving Lamar, and they can spread that around to other positions, therefore building a better overall team without Lamar being there, because they don't have to allocate a large part of the salary cap to him. There's a reason why 3 out of the 4 quarterbacks that were in this year's conference championship games were on cheap deals. When you have a quarterback on a cheap deal, it allows you to bring in free agents. It allows you to bring in stars like the Philadelphia Eagles. The reason why they were able to pay for Hassan Reddick, a James Bradbury in free agency, trade for A.J. Brown, because they had Jalen Hurts playing on a rookie deal. The Philadelphia Eagles roster is already built up to the point now where most of their best players on offense are secured long term. So therefore, they can sign Jalen Hurts and not have to worry about who they're going to have at receiver, who they're going to have long term at tight end or whatnot, because some of their better players are already secured long term. Now, of course, you're not going to be able to keep everybody on both sides. You're going to have some stars that are going to walk away. That's just how this business works. But for many of you guys, you seem to kind of be missing the big reason why Lamar Jackson's contract situation is what it is right now. His play on the field isn't the problem. It's his availability. Availability is key. You are my franchise quarterback. You are the guy who I need you to be available to lead my team to a championship. If you can't stay healthy, what's the point of keeping you? Why do you think the 49ers went out and traded so much to get Trey Lance? Because Jimmy Garoppolo couldn't stay healthy. It wasn't just the fact that Jimmy G was average. I mean, the 49ers this year proved with Brock Purdy that if they really wanted to, they could still have won with Jimmy Garoppolo. The problem with Jimmy G is that you couldn't trust him to stay healthy. He was a liability. And when you're a liability, you find people who are more reliable. In life, you have to be available for your company. If we work at a job and we continue to take time off and call out of work, what's going to happen? Eventually, we're going to get fired. And when it comes to negotiating deals in sports, unfortunately, teams take injury history into account. And although we have to give a lot of kudos to Lamar Jackson for playing this year, despite the fact that he was on a contract year, you still have to look at the fact that he took a big risk. Lamar Jackson, if he would have sat out this year due to his contract demands or his contract situations, yeah, a lot of fans wouldn't have been happy with it, but you would have understood why he opted not to play. Because Lamar Jackson played, he got injured, and guess what? Now he's kind of screwed because now he can't get the contract that he wants due to his injury history. If Lamar Jackson would have sat out, he would have had a little bit more leverage. But now that he decided to play this past season and he got injured for the second consecutive year in a row, The Ravens now hold the leverage in Lamar Jackson's contract situation. You can say, well, JT, the Ravens are the reason why he got injured because they were abusing him too much. No, that's not true. Yeah, the Ravens haven't surrounded Lamar Jackson with the best supporting cast when it comes to receiver, but you still do have Mark Andrews, and the Ravens have always had one of the NFL's best rushing attacks with or without Lamar. So it's not like the Ravens were just completely one-dimensional on offense without Lamar Jackson. The Ravens were still able to make it to the postseason without Lamar, and they almost beat the Cincinnati Bengals without Lamar. It took a miraculous fumble for the Cincinnati Bengals to put away the Baltimore Ravens. I think the Ravens will be perfectly fine without Lamar Jackson. They may not be Super Bowl contenders, but at least they will be able to field a more competitive roster without Lamar Jackson versus keeping Lamar Jackson and bending to his contract demands. You see, you guys have an issue with the Ravens because you think they're doing a disservice because they're not willing to bend to the knees of their franchise QB. But you know what happened to the last team that bent to their knees to the franchise QB? It was the Arizona Cardinals. And you tell me how they're looking right now after paying Kyler Murray what they paid him. You see, everybody has to realize that in the NFL, everybody's replaceable. No matter how good they are, because players come and go. Eventually, Lamar Jackson is going to retire and you're going to have to replace him and life is going to go on. You can't keep everybody. That's just how life works. In life, we lose friends. We lose relationships. People come and go. That's just how life works. Not everybody's meant to stay around forever. You can't keep everybody satisfied. And when it comes to the world of professional sports, with the salary cap, you can't pay everybody. You can't satisfy everybody. You're always going to have some good players that leave. It's just what comes with it. But when it comes to giving a fully guaranteed contract to a guy who hasn't been on the field late in the season, the most important time of the year, I don't really understand what people are not getting about this Lamar Jackson contract situation. Why would you give Lamar Jackson a fully guaranteed contract and yet you have concerns about him being able to stay healthy? Let me know what you guys think about Lamar Jackson's current contract situation down in the comment section down below. Make sure that you like the video, subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you check out the JT Sports Podcast. Every video and full episode of the podcast that's uploaded on the YouTube channel is available in audio format on all podcasting platforms. Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts from, you can find the JT Sports Podcast.